So my background really is very influenced by many different things, very eclectic. I grew up, classical music, Western classical music was the first thing. My grandfather was my piano teacher. He started me off when I was 4. And I got exposed to all kinds of classical music. But at the same time, my father played guitar. My parents were both pretty good amateur musicians, not professional. And he loved flamenco. And I just remember hearing, as a kid, those beautiful kind of sounds as a kid. And that opened up my sense of my love of modes and modality. So I heard the juxtaposition of this kind of Eastern influence stuff through Spain, which is what flamenco was, with Western classical. And my early impressions, and I always tell this story, was pictures in an exhibition by Ravel. Right now I'm studying South Indian music pretty intensely, Konakol, South Indian rhythm, and I'm working on Hindustani music as well, and I'm combining this with my jazz and my composition, and I'm also studying more orchestration, because I'm writing a couple more orchestra pieces, and I have more jazz stuff coming out, so it's busy. I work with the Essex Chamber Music Players in Andover, Mass. I write a lot of stuff for them. And I've written pieces for symphony orchestra. I've had the privilege of having things played by the Czech Radio Symphony, both at a performance in Boston Symphony Hall and in Prague. I've written for the Polish Symphony Orchestra, Silesian Philharmonic, and gone over there and recorded things with a number of American composers who've done this. And I've also written unusual pieces like a sitar concerto that was performed here in Boston by Peter Rowe, and he did a beautiful job on it. And I've combined non-Western instruments with Western instruments quite a bit. So the biggest probably choice things that I've gone through are whether to write in a jazz idiom or whether to write in a contemporary classical idiom. When I toured and performed with Jimmy Giuffre, I really identify with that aspect of him, because he always used to say that he had one foot in the classical world and one foot in the jazz world, though clearly he was a jazz person, and that's what he wanted to end up focusing everything into as a jazz musician. But it gave me the opportunity to realize that all these things coexist, and a composer kind of almost has the obligation. There's something immoral about abandoning your own best judgment and what you hear. And George Russell always used to say that you have a right, almost an obligation, to follow what you hear, to follow your muse. And hopefully at the same time you're giving something to the world of value going back. But I think if you do that and you really work from the heart and you work the best level you can, with everything else going on in life, which I hope most people try to do, I think you're giving your best, and that's what I think is really worth doing in music, because then the music will sort of take on a life of its own and come through.